and the ISP. And right now, when you the copy feature only comes up once the ISP or the RN assessment is completed. But when you copy the assessment, it's not pulling over the information. So we are working with our AssureCare vendor to see if that was the intent, just for it to copy a blank one, or if the intent was to pull forward the information. We do see benefits in both, how the pull forward information will be beneficial, especially if it's the same nurse completing the assessment again on the same member. But we have not got a response from AssureCare, so I do want to flag we are looking into that one. So go ahead and admit one more time, and then we'll go ahead and start the training. And just so everyone is aware, we are going to be recording this, so we can hopefully share it for future trainings. And once again, please pose any questions while we're on that actual as part of the RN assessment in the Q&A, so we can either answer in real time or take it back to our vendor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mercedes. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We have over 120 people. Okay. I will share the screen in just a moment. Just to reiterate, this is mainly intended for the people who will be filling out the actual assessment. Is a matter of vocabulary. Everything in MedCompass in that section is an assessment. Like in the case management assessment section, we call them all assessments. That's the technical term, but obviously there's different things. We have our assessment tool, and then we have the ISP. So in case we say assessment just generically, it doesn't mean it's just referring to the assessment tool. It could be referring to both of them. So let me head over. Okay. And I also just want to be clear on the scope. I'm not a nurse or a clinician. I'm, not going to be able to actually answer, like, oh, is this question, what are you expecting exactly with this question or that question? Beyond the obvious, but not like, oh, if you're answering this, we need this level of clinical detail. I can't answer that. We might have time if any of our nurses from DHCS were able to join. There might be some time for questions like that at the end, but just go ahead and put everything like Mercedes said in the Q&A, not the chat, but the Q&A, and you can post whatever comment or question, and Mercedes will be walking through, and anything we can't answer we'll be able to take back and share later. So we already have one question, so we can take one question now, and then we'll get started.
Hi, this is Rebecca from Star Nursing. I'm just letting you know that, and I'm wondering if this is happening with other people. It says there was a problem reaching this app when we go to the Q&A. There's no actual option to ask a question.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Is that just
okay,
me, or is that okay?
No, that I know what that is. That's right. In the last sessions, we had to do an extra step to turn on the Q&A. Let me just
Okay. Thank you.
do that real quick. Yeah. And if it doesn't work, we'll just use the chat. But let me. I think maybe once the meeting started, it's not letting me. Let's see. Here's the meeting invite. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's giving me the option right now. So, Mercedes, I don't know, since you were the organizer, can you try to go in and see if you could update the settings on the meeting? There's team settings, next
Yeah.
to where you, and then one of the things you could disable the chat, but you can click a little toggle to turn on the Q&A. And I think it should work, even though we started the meeting.
It's showing it's on for Q&A.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I have the ability, I don't know. Okay, yeah, I mean, it looks like we do have the Q&A enabled.
It's still not letting us access it though.
Like no one can access it. Is anyone able to?
I still can't. I retried and it did the same thing.
Okay. Well then, are you able to access the chat? No, it's been turned off. That's
I
odd.
just turned it on.
Okay, you turned it back on. Okay, good. Okay, so I guess if you're able to use the Q&A, if any of you use that, it's a lot easier to organize the responses and things. If you can't use the Q&A, then you can put your questions in the chat. Mercedes will do her best to go back and forth. Okay, so now let's get started real quick. We're not going to go through everything, even though it's tempting because we didn't have a lot of time to go into more depth into some of these other areas. But let's focus on purpose of this meeting. And this is just a fake. You might have seen this in the trainings we did a couple weeks ago. This Mickey profile. So again, being able to do any assessment, anything in here, you need to have a profile for the person. You're not going to be able to just, that's basic, but just so you know, you can't get here until there's actually a record for the individual you want to do the assessment on created. And then once it's created, then you could get into their record. And that's where you'll be able to create new assessments. There's nowhere else that you could do that aside from within an individual member's record. So on the left-hand menu, case management tab, this is where you access the assessments. Click on the assessment. And then we have a bunch of different ones because we use this for testing. So if you wanted to start a new one, which we won't be able to because it looks like we have one in process, but to start a new assessment, you click on add new assessment on the top right, and then you'll be able to, you only should be seeing the ISP and then the RN assessment, ALW RN assessment. These other ones should not be visible to you. And if they are visible, don't click on anything other than an ALW one because it's not going to help you. So let me just do something here real quick. Okay. Yeah, it looks like this one's partially filled out, so that's good. We can just work off this one because I don't want to have to answer every single question here. But this is like I don't know if we hit it in any depth, and maybe in a couple of the trainings we went a little bit into this, but once you've started a new one, there are going to be certain fields that are automatically populated. This one we kind of went through testing it before, so it's not all of these things are going to be auto-populated, but things like the client information, like the name, birthday, stuff like that, I believe should all be, their Medi-Cal SIN number should be populated automatically. But most of it is going to be something you have to fill in. And it does follow, by and large, up until we get to the treatment page here. It by and large is really mirroring the assessment tool you're used to. we moved a little bit around so that it wasn't duplicative. So there might be additional details in certain areas that there weren't before. For example, in the communication, and we'll get there. I think we changed some of maybe added a couple questions or changed the question options, answer options on them. To align with what we needed to gather. But by and large, for the most part, it's all going to be very, very similar and familiar questions and answer choices. It's not until we get to the treatment that you'll really see the big addition. And so your job, you can do this. You can open this up on a tablet, on a laptop. You can go to the facility and sit with the person and ask your questions and do your thing. And as you're going, you're able to fill this out and save it. We will be getting at some point also, I believe we're going to be, I don't know when on the timeline, but there's possibility of getting some offline functionality where you'll be able to load up an assessment on your portable device, and then you don't even need to be connected to the internet necessarily. That's down the line, but that'll be another thing where, if you can't be connected the whole time, you'll be able to fill it out offline and then connect to MedCompass, and it will push everything into the real environment. So your job is to go through and fill out all these questions. Again, I'm encouraging you to do this as you do the actual assessment, to actually start filling this out with the person when you're talking to them, so that you can save time. I don't think it makes a lot of sense unless there's some technological constraint for you to print it out and write it in, and then have go back and enter everything in electronically after. But of course, that's up to you how you want to do it. So everything with a red asterisk is a required question that you have to answer. You won't be able to mark it complete until they're answered. So that's important. And as we showed in the trainings the other week, if you try to complete it when all the questions are not actually answered, it will give you a validation error, and it will let you kind of click directly to a question that, oh wait, I guess it was never mind, I did complete it. All right, so everything was answered. We'll just reopen. Okay, so I'm just keeping this general again because I'm not going to be able to tell you, the level of detail or things like that we want in terms of the clinical information. But I guess I want to first open up real quick and ask, and you can put it in the chat or just raise the hand, or put a thumbs up or something from the reactions if you've completed one of these yet.
I'm sorry, Sam. Was that a question for me?
No, I'm just asking, seeing who has an. So I guess let me ask, from the people who are indicating that they have filled it out, in the chat, if you'd like, is there anything in particular with the way it works, how it actually flows when you're answering things that you found um, uh, inefficient, or created some kind of roadblock, or it wasn't natural, uh, or whatever, were there any criticisms of the basic, how do you enter information and answer questions and things?
Um, I'm sorry, there's just so many questions. I can't exactly.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way.
But
That's why the
we did
Q&A
get
is
one
so
where they
long.
asked just to start from start to finish.
I mean, okay, I guess we could walk through. Okay, so the first question is the date of assessment. That's the date you're actually conducting the assessment. Then you need to answer the reason for assessment, which again, if this is an intake, it will always be initial. After that, it might be one of these other reasons that you're doing the reassessment. If you're not requesting a change in tier level or residential habilitation, um, then it's going to generally be a semi-annual. And then, of course, if there's a re-enrollment, then that's kind of similar to an initial. So they'll only be relevant, uh, you know, if they're re-enrolling. And then just keep in mind if it's good that you need to answer if it's a hospital or not accurately, because then, for example, if you ask if it's a hospital, you get these additional questions about when it was, was it planned, and the date of admission and date of discharge, which are obviously important for determining whether they're eligible for re-enrollment. And then if you click on non-hospital, you won't get those questions. Okay, so then we added this kind of catch-all question here, the client unable to provide responses, and that was mainly because there are certain of the quality measures that, new questions that were added to be in compliance with the access rule, federal access rule. The federal government is soliciting additional information on both on the clinical assessment portion, level of care assessment, which is this assessment tool, and then on the care plans, which is the ISP. They're called the LTSS 1 and then the LTSS 2 measures, which correspond to assessment and ISP. And so there are a number, over 10 core, meaning required measures, and then there are a number of supplementary measures that we need to comply with a certain number. I believe we comply with most of them. So that is not our choice. We can't take those questions out. So there's no point in complaining about those questions. There really is. If we didn't have to add those, we wouldn't have. But it wasn't really an option if we want to be in compliance with the CMS mandate. So this kind of, and we're going to clean some of this up. We had to go through this exercise with HCBA first and then ALW, updating all of these. And also we added the HCBA care plan into MedCompass as well. So there's some things that we're going to clean up over the next year, like how this functions. But basically, this is kind of a flag if they're unable to respond to some of those LTSS surveys that are in here.
Hey, Sam.
Yes.
For reason and assessment, if they're doing their semi-annual, but they're going to be requesting RH at the same time, do they select RH?
You can. We'll know it won't necessarily be obvious it's a semi-annual. It might be sooner, but yeah, you can select RH here or change in tier. But as a reminder, what we showed the other week is the rules, the automations are not driven from here that submit your request.
That's right.
They're driven from the ISP. So it doesn't, this should be matching, what you're putting in the ISP, obviously, but it's not going to mess up the workflow if you click residential habilitation instead of change in tier level. As long as the ISP is, you've clicked change in tier level in the ISP, then it'll make that request through the system. And then we want to know who the social worker is. It's not a required question, so if you don't answer it, you will still be able to complete. But it would be good to know that, since in the program screen you can only really add one case manager in that screen, and so it's good to know who else is on there, and we know you're going to be doing these periodically and updating these as needed. So if the social worker change, we have more confidence you'll put the information here than regularly update the staff team elsewhere in MedCompass. Although that's really what you should be doing, but and the staff team is basically a list of users, MedCompass users associated with the organization that are, do some work on this case. They're involved with this particular case. Then again, assessment completed by whoever's filling it out, the visit location. And it's like this one we could probably get rid of since we'll know who it's completed by based on who marks it complete. But again, that's some cleanup things that we're welcome to point these things out and send us lists of things you think are redundant or other issues, because we do take all of that into account, and we can update these assessments down the line. And then of course the name of your CCA. So that's the basic initial information we need, and then you go through the client information. It's demographics. I'm not sure if we had the transgender questions on the Excel. I don't think we did, but now you have the option to indicate those if they're relevant. Marital status, Medicare number, that would be somewhere you could put a social, but we don't request socials generally, because we can do all our workflows work off the SIN in MedCompass, so we don't really need the social, and it's just additional information that's PI that's not necessarily needed on our end. And then of course the SIN number, it's also this, you'll see fields for this throughout MedCompass. In these assessments, we labeled them SIN, but in other parts of MedCompass, it's the member ID field. Like if you're doing a search for a member, the member ID field is where you put the SIN. And then their ethnicity and primary language. This is also a question that we took from the assessment tool, but it's important because obviously if they have a conservator, then it's going to give you additional questions to answer based on, if it's a state, the person. I don't know why we'd have none as a field here. That's odd. If there's none, you wouldn't click conservator. And then other, here you'll just be able to put the name of the individual who's basically responsible. So it might not be a conservatorship. It might be someone with an advanced directive. It might be someone with a statutory, like a mother to a child who's authorized to make healthcare decisions. So, and you wouldn't consider the mom a conservator. But of course you don't have children in minors in your, so they might be a guardian in that case. But regardless, if they're responsible for themselves and they make their own decisions and you communicate with them, you click that. And then of course the basic address. I think we're going to get rid of this actually. This needs to go. Mercedes. Okay. Or it needs to be fixed, the rule. This should not be visible.
Okay.
Because
Go
I
up a
think
little bit real quick, Sam, so grab it for contact information.
yeah, it's under the client information section,
Okay.
contact information. So like if it's a conservator or whatever, we do want their address. If it's other, we want their address. But if it's client responsible for self, we do not need this. Okay. But luckily it's not a required field, so you can skip that, everyone. And then it asks if they have an advanced directive. If yes, then you put it here. If no, it will ask if they're willing to designate someone. And then if you say yes, that's great. If you say no, it's also great. Okay. Now, interaction with family and friends. I believe this is a new thing. This is one of those quality measures that we're required to gather. So how often? This is very straightforward. Is rarely, once a week, a few times a month, 4 or more times a week. And then the same question for telephone, if they talk on the telephone. And that also includes, by the way, like FaceTime, whatever. It does just if they talk to them through whatever means, whether it's computer or on an actual phone. And then the physician information. This is important because we generally don't have physician database in MedCompass, so they're not a searchable provider type. So it's important that at the very least it's recorded here for your team internally to know who their physician is, but also we need to know that they do have a physician, obviously. Now there's this health risk section. Some of this, or maybe most of this, can't remember if this ER question was around before, but this is also one of those new things we have to gather. CMS required. As you can see, all these questions are required. So you have to, if they visited the ER twice in the last 6 months, you put 2 there. If the client is under the age of 65, it only applies to men. For some reason, this question, it asks how many times have you had 5 or more drinks in a day in the past year, for men under 65. If it's anyone else, this applies, whether male or female. If you click no, then and they're over 65, then how many times in the past year have you had 4 or more drinks a day? So it's slightly different question. But that's what our consultant that helped us develop these questions and make sure we're in compliance, they said this is required for some reason by CMS, so it is. And then if they're currently a tobacco user, if there's any substance abuse issues, and then if there are substance abuse, then it'll just ask for some detail, like what kind of are they abusing, whatever it is. And obviously, if it's tobacco, you don't have to answer tobacco. You're gonna tell us it's tobacco. And same with the drinking. I think this will cover the drinking. Pretty straightforward. But if it's some kind of prescription medicine that they're abusing, or some kind of other, if there's something else going on, then you let us know here. Okay, abuse neglect reporting. Again, if there are issues, then it's going to ask you to specify. And then this is something that is for you. This is kind of a attestation by the person conducting the assessment that we need to know that you made sure that the people, your population, knows how to report abuse neglect. That's we have to gather that as well. And then if you are aware of something, if some events occurred, for example, this question, if such events occurred, were the appropriate authorities notified? It's yes. If something happened and they were notified. If something happened and the authorities were not notified, it's a no. And wait, this should be okay. And if it's yes, you need to specify which authority, who was notified. If you're not aware of anything, then you click NA, because it's asking if such events occurred. But if no of such events occurred, then you can just click NA, and that's it. Okay, and then these questions, managed care. You'll have to identify which plan they're with. If we're missing a plan, let us know. We haven't we might need to update this. This was created like 2 years ago or so, or maybe more now. So there might be new plans, or there might be plans that disappeared. I don't know. But if it's not here, yeah, let us know, because this is a required question. Okay, so whatever. If they're receiving community supports, then these boxes allow you to check multiple responses. So if they're getting more than one thing, if they're getting help with housing deposits and medically tailored meals, you check both of those. If they're not receiving any community support services, no, and then you move on. These are other non-waiver community-based programs they might be involved in. I don't know if you have any of your members who are involved with CBAS or receive any other subsidies and things, but you can indicate those here. Obviously, something like IHSS, that would really only be applicable for people who are on the program and residing in a public subsidized housing. But some of these other things might be relevant, although I doubt. Yeah, if most people are probably in a facility where food is provided, or they don't pay for electricity, they don't, so a lot of these won't be relevant.
Hey, Sid.
Yeah.
We have a question from saying if a member refuses to answer any of the PHQ-9 questions, what can they do? Like, I'm not saying they're not able to consent to services, but they just want to refuse to answer those.
I'm not sure. We'd have to take that back.
Okay.
I mean, the bottom line is if it's a
I
required,
can.
and
Apologies, Sam. I'm so sorry. May I ask a follow-up question to that? Thank you so much, Mercedes, for addressing the question. I guess my follow-up is if you take that back and it's a required field and we're all working in real time to ensure we meet our deadlines, how can we complete any assessment since everything is required and we can't complete the assessment unless there's an answer to those questions?
Yeah, we'll take it back. You can't complete it, correct? And you can't just make something up either. So if they're refusing to answer and it's stopping you from actually being able to submit the application in time, that might result in them not being able to enroll. But that's something we'll have to get our leadership to confirm, or if there's some other workaround that we would want to implement, like allowing a answer option that they refuse to answer, something like that, that allows you to still complete it. But that's, again, I can't answer that right now.
Hey, Sam, if the member has a POA or an authorized representative, can they answer the questions in lieu of the member?
Yes. I mean, that would be, yes. In the case where, well, it depends, I think, on the short answer is yes. They can basically answer any of these questions on their behalf. But if the person is able to answer, and it might be good to just confirm that they agree. But yes, generally speaking, if they have a legal relationship, or a person who's actually authorized to speak on their behalf, then yeah, you can work with them on gathering all of the information needed. Okay. So we got through the first page here. Prohibited health conditions. If it's no, that's a no, and you move on. If it's a yes, then you will need to specify which exemption the facility plans to request. Okay, moving on. I'm just going to say no. And you see here, you don't have to click through on the left. You can click next down here on the bottom right to move to the next area in the assessment. So this is the memory, recall ability, the cognitive mood and behavior patterns. Generally, you should be familiar with this. I don't think we need to go through question by question, but um, but we might have modified a little bit some of the answer responses, so they might be slightly different, but it's basically the same idea. You have a range of ability, and so just indicate whichever one's the closest to the real conditions. And as you can see, this section is scored. So this would go towards the determining eligibility and tier level. And just a note on level of care, it's not something you had to really think about because it's basically set up to where based on the score, the tier level, that's what kind of determines their level of care. So almost everyone, I forget where the point is where which tier level, but I believe pretty much everyone tiers 2 through 5 would be considered an NFB, and I believe tier 1s only are considered NFA level of care. We can confirm that, but if they're found eligible and they are have a tier level based on the responses, then they meet the level of care presumptively. Okay, so screening for cognitive impairment. So here it's not, so there are two ways we gather this. There's the patient health questionnaire way, which is we actually just took the patient health questionnaire and added them as questions embedded in the assessment that you have to answer. Or like here, the screening for cognitive impairment, that wasn't feasible to do because based on their conditions, there were different screening tools you'd have to use. So all you really have to do to complete it is just say yes, that you completed the appropriate cognitive screening for the person. And you could see the links here. If you click into these links, it will take you to, hopefully those links still work, to the web page where we got the information from. So then you could fill it out here and with the person, and then mark complete when you're done. So if they don't have substantial cognitive or visual impairment, you can complete the main one, the mini cog. If they have, visual or other sensory impairments, then you can use the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, which takes that into account. And then if for people who cannot, so if you would click that box at the beginning that they're too cognitively impaired to answer, then we would expect that you would use this survey, which is for people with proxies or guardians. So this is what you'd use if an authorized representative, had to respond on behalf of the individual.
424. 424.
Okay. So that's it. So this is kind of, all CMS, and we confirmed this. All they want to know, they're not interested in the actual responses for state reporting purposes. They just want to know that this is part of our HCBS programs that we assess these different areas. And so this is enough just to say, yes, you completed it, and that would meet our reporting requirement. Now, the patient health questionnaire, this is one where I have to double check on this one actually, because I know there was the patient health questionnaire, and there was another one that we had determined would not need to be answered if they're cognitive issues, but in this case, we're allowing a proxy, obviously, to respond on their behalf for now, and we will provide more clarity on this because we will actually be having another presentation being specific to address these things with our Mathematica, who's our consultant helping us with the LTSS stuff. So we will be inviting them to have a presentation and kind of go over and answer much more specifically any questions you have on these areas. But we will be answering something like this, whether or not if they have a cognitive impairment, whether you don't have to answer it at all. And in some instances, I thought we built that into certain areas, but let's see.
Hey, Sam.
Yes.
I just want to flag, we've gotten a few questions, and if we get the same question again, I'm missing them, but I just want to flag, we have not been approved to offer any extensions to use this assessment. It's within the Med Compass module. We are not approved to accept the RN assessment via paper through the email. This has come from our leadership and their leadership. So I know that is concerning, and you could feel free to email the inbox because we do forward those to management to review. But we were receiving a few comments in there, and I just wanted to be able to, I could address questions. So at this time, there's no 2-week extension to using the RN assessment within the Med Compass module.
There's a 2-week extension for the last 2 releases only, right?
There's actually a 1 month for each extension.
Oh, 1
but
month,
still,
okay.
yeah, those assessments still need to be completed within the Med Compass module. So there's no exception to using the RN assessment. That's within the Med Compass.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, now this is a new question. Again, one of the quality measures. We did add an option if they're too cognitively impaired to respond. You could just click that. Otherwise, whatever they tell you, that's the answer. This should be pretty much exactly the same. I don't think we need to go through this. It's the exact same questions in the ADL self-performance as what you're used to. Again, these are drop-down. You can only pick one option. And of course, the scoring here for transparency, the first 8 questions, I believe it's the first 8, are what determine the ADL score. How the scoring supposed to work is there's an ADL score that's solely generated from this section, the 8 questions out of this ADL self-performance section. And then throughout in other areas, we're also calculating total points for the other scored questions, and the tier level is determined by what the ADL is and what the total points. So if you have a higher ADL and lower the threshold to be a tier 3, 4 is lower in terms of total points when you have a higher ADL, and the lower the ADL score, the more total points you need to have a higher tier level. So the ADL score is 0, 1, 2. The system is supposed to be calculating based on the score here in the physical functioning, doing a calculation. Basically, there's a range of numbers that are equivalent to an ADL score of 1 or 2. So if it's within that range of score in the section, that's what the ADL score will be assigned as. And of course, obviously, the higher the dependence level, the higher the score will be. Okay. Yeah, I wonder if here, yeah, okay. All right, assistive devices. Again, most of these questions, I believe you should be familiar with. We did, we have, I'm not sure if in the original, if there was a different grab bar question or if it was just one grab bar question, but it's broken down. We have two, one for the shower and one for the toilet. Um, but I don't think there's really anything too confusing here or too different from what you're used to. And then if there are any DME supply issues and you click yes, then it will prompt you to specify, to give some detail on what's going on. Uh, you know, what are they needing that they can't get, and why are they having that issue? Um, okay, ambulatory status. I believe this is a little bit maybe different than how it was presented before, but it's basically still taken more or less from the original um, assessment.
Pam,
Yes. Uh,
I have a quick question. Are you guys making us do the vitals now?
we'll
Or
get to
the
the
nurse's
treatment
assessment?
section. I think there's some questions in the treatment section that ask about some of the vitals, like what you would have been used to with the HCBA.
Because this is a social program. This is not medical.
I mean, it is a medical program. They have to, uh, meet the minimum level of care. It's just not for as high of acuity people as HCBA.
So they're gonna leave the vitals and blood pressure in there?
But we'll discuss. I mean, we want we wanted to put them in there. Like I explained at least in one or two of the other trainings before, for the basic reason that it gives you a better picture of, you get a fuller, you get a more comprehensive assessment of their functional um, capacity and everything, and their health conditions. But we do understand that some of those are not going to be addressed, or are not, like there's no private duty nursing in ALW. So if they have conditions that would require, you know, regular nursing, um, shift nursing, they probably actually wouldn't be appropriate for ALW at all.
Hi, Sam. Just to, about the same question here.
Well, the only reason I bring it up is because, Nanny, go ahead and you talk.
There is a difference between the ALW and
I'll mute.
HCA. The ALW, not even the facilities are required to have any medical people on staff by Title 22. So most of the facilities don't even just have caregivers, no nurses, nobody that is licensed. So they don't even measure blood pressure, right? Because if they have any condition that they should be measured, they have to be in a skilled and not in an ALW. That's why this training is very important too, perhaps to be trained by a nurse, because no disrespect, but what you're going through is what we see. But what we need to understand is how to answer the questions and to remove a lot of redundancies that is being happening.
My personal proposal will be, my recommendation to leadership will be to have on the initial assessment to require going through the treatment, um, because then, like you just pointed out, if you do a deeper dive into their conditions and find, oh, you know what, they're really not appropriate for ALW. That's kind of the purpose of it, in my mind. But for ongoing, I would recommend that you don't have to answer those questions on an ongoing basis. So it would only be for an initial assessment tool, or potentially a re-enrollment. But in either case, that's something we can't really answer now. But as far as getting nursing to nurse to help train, yes, we would love that. And if we can get a commitment from our nurses to do that, we will be happy to set something up to go through more in depth with you.
Hey, and also, sorry, I just wanted to add too, for reassessments that were done prior to go live, so meaning after we halted and said no more submissions, if your nurses still continue to assess, or maybe you assess but just didn't submit them in time, if it was a reassessment, not an initial application, not a re-enrollment, a reassessment, and it did not result in a tier change, and you did not submit it to DHCS prior to that go live, for those ones, you can upload them into the members document center in their profile. We will allow those ones to be uploaded. That's just for that small group, and it would be a small window where, well, it could be from June 1st or whatnot. It's just for those ones that did not result in a tier change, but for whatever reason, it just was not submitted to DHCS prior to the go live. You can go ahead and upload the reassessment, hold the whole packet to the member's profile within the MedCompass module. So if the reassessment resulted in a tier change, if it was resulted in a re-enrollment, anything else, all has to be done through MedCompass. It's just a little flexibility we're giving just for those. Maybe it's probably only a few weeks, but those ones can be uploaded to the
Well,
document
we
center.
appreciate that, Mercedes. Thank you so much.
No, of course.
Because it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, sorry, Sam. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No problem. Okay, so yeah, then we have the falls risk section. Again, this is important, obviously, for many reasons, but I believe some of these things were specifically called out that we had to solicit information based on a survey. I believe we used, they recommended a fall risk survey, kind of a standardized one. So that's what we have here. But this section is not scored. You'll see any section that contributes to the total score, uh, that then helps determine the tier level, will have a little score next to it, like this section, content section has a score. Here, just to note that if they are self-managed, then this doesn't generate a score. So we're only it only contributes to a higher tier level if they need assistance, and based on whether they're occasionally or more intensively incontinent and need assistance, it will impact the scoring.
Is there an option, Sam? They said that it was in the other assessment if they're continent but needs assistance. Is that not an option anymore?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I don't believe that's an option, no. No. But I believe it would be captured elsewhere, in the ADL, and if they need transfer, if they have transfer aids, if they have grab bars, and then I think the IADL as well, in this section, will help answer that question. Okay, so again, this is pretty much the same. I don't think we need to go through this. You should all be familiar with IADLs, and it's again a drop down. You can only pick one, and you have the option to indicate that they don't reside in a setting where they engage. I imagine that in most ALW settings, there's someone who does housekeeping and things like that, basic chores. So I'm not sure that but they might be relevant. They might, you know, some of these might be totally relevant, some might not. So, and then like, for example, some of them might prompt like this one. If you indicate that they arrange, how in whatever manner transportation, then it asks you to specify. Um, okay, so that's that section. All right, communication. Okay, so this is the area, right? In communication, there were some. We did kind of change. We still solicited most of this information more or less in the original assessment tool, but we kind of changed some of them to align better with how we're collecting this information in the other program, and also just because it seemed um, more clear and more detailed. But again, more or less, you're used to answering the questions about um, vision, hearing, speech, and language impairments from your um, assessment tool. It's just now, for example, speech impairment, if it is relevant, we might be soliciting maybe slightly different answers than what you would have answered before, but it should all be clear enough. Okay. And then obviously, if it's not relevant, you just click no, and you don't have to answer any of it. Same with hearing. If there's no hearing issues, you just click no. There's no vision issues, no. Then that's it. Then you're done. If they don't have any of these issues, you don't have to answer any of the related questions. We moved some things around here, but again, this is more or less taken from the assessment tool you're used to. So we did add, for example, if there was if there are active infections present. I believe that either maybe tuberculosis was not listed under this area. It was in another area. And so I think it was in the other. So we kind of moved that around, but more or less this should be pretty much the same as what you're used to. And of course, if you, these are multiple choice, so you can click all that apply in any of these checkboxes. Okay. This is the one. Yeah, the chronic disease self-efficacy skill. That's one we got approval that if they're not able to actually answer these due to cognitive issues, then you can just say no, and we're okay with that. I think the PHQ 9, for some reason, that one had to be still answered via a proxy if the person can't, but that's another thing. We'll be following up on again, seeing if anything changed there. But if they are able to understand, then here, this is one of the sections where it's built into the MedCompass assessment tool, and then you would give their responses. So
Sam, hi, I have a question.
yes.
You mentioned the depression screening needs to be answered, and it can be answered by a proxy. And we have clients who are cognitively impaired with no proxy, no conservator. So in those situations, how should we move forward? Can an admin or caregiver at the facility, medtech, just answer for them?
How
While
do
you wait to get feedback, obviously.
how do you deal with it in other contexts? Like, how are
Well,
they agreeing to be on the program then? in the first place.
Well, we have clients who entered the program with their cognition in place, and they've been with us for a long time, so things have changed over the course of the years. So if we apply for conservatorship, there's no follow-up. What we're told is, oh, they're safe, they're in a facility, and a conservator is not appointed to them.
Oh, that's good
We
to
have the
know.
same experience.
Hey, Sam, in these
Yeah.
cases, we did have a few come up with CCAs, where these for enrolled members. So we do have those ones because technically they're kind of in a limbo, but for initial assessments, they just wouldn't be able to proceed if they don't answer them. But for reassessments, we might have to take that one back just because we do know there's like a handful of those enrolled members that are now not able to consent to services. We'd have conversed with OLS, and they're basically saying only a doctor can determine that. And I think we issued that in the guidance, but I understand that it is a case by case scenario. So if you do have a specific member that you're about to reassess and that falls into that category, please let us know, and we'll converse with our compliance and our policy team to determine how we should go about completing the assessment.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Of course.
I think the major disconnect here is, sounds like a lot of this is geared towards initials, and we understand that because the wait list is important. But a lot of our concerns have to do with the folks that are already in the program, and we need to service them and advocate for them. And we're kind of stuck with how to move forward. It's clear how to move forward with initials now. I guess they can't enroll, which is terrible, but for the folks that are already enrolled, that's the question.
Got it.
Okay. Yeah, this has been a question for a long time that there's not really ever been a good answer for, because really the answer should be they need to be conserved. But if that's not happening, or if the courts are refusing to do so, that's a different problem. But this
That's
also
a common issue we run against.
it also highlights, though, the need for, before, to constantly keep checking in with people as you work with them over the months and years, and just encourage them, if possible, to appoint someone to be able to speak on their behalf if they are unable to, someone they trust, because then we would avoid this issue. Obviously, if there's no one in the world that could fill that role, then we're gonna have to deal with it. But it's important. I mean, even while people are cognitively sound, it's a good idea to have a backup decision maker, if one exists, just to have them there. Okay. Medications, the nutritional status. Again, this is a scored section based on your
And do you
answers.
notice that it doesn't populate the same if you select 1 to 10, 11 to 20, or more than 20? That's an error in the assessment that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, you're right. It is. They should all populate all of that every time.
Correct.
Thank you. Mercedes, make a note, please.
Yeah. Got
Thank you. That's a good call out.
Well,
Okay.
and this is a scored section, so again, this may be affecting tiers, and so I'm not sure how we submit assessments when it's not working properly. And so we're having to just sit on these assessments and not submit anything. I understand things take time, but the expectation is we're processing and submitting applications right now, and it's affecting people's tiers. So do you guys have any idea as to turnaround when we might figure out why the assessment tool isn't functioning properly yet?
Well, this one we know why. I could tell you why this part isn't, but as far as the scoring, we are looking into that more generally to make sure it's matching with how it used to score. But here, this is something we'll have to fix like right away. So hopefully within the next week or so, we'll have maybe even less. It's just a rule. It's a rule that it's supposed to show those hidden questions if you click on any three of these options, any of these three options. And if you click 0, then that's the only time it's not supposed to show. Okay, that's good. Thank you. So again, you answer the questions the extent as accurately as possible. And then we have this question about injections. The score part of this is a scored question. It's actually determined by whether it's the client themselves, the member, or another individual that administers the injection. So, and then you will have the option, if you say they do get, you have the option, just like in the assessment tool, I believe you could indicate up to 2 injectables, but it'll only score once. It doesn't give a second score if they have additional injectable medications. Allergy question, if yes, you should get a prompt to specify, what are they allergic to. And then this oral nutritional, we did kind of clarify. It was a little weird how it was worded originally when we were putting this question in. So you can indicate if there's weight loss or weight gain. It's not both at the same time, which it was kind of phrased that way before. And then no or unknown. And then the same thing with food allergies as medication allergies, you would just specify any foods they are allergic to. Okay, now this is the big change. Some of this is similar. The skin condition section is this is taken from the assessment tool, and then the original assessment tool, and then down here in the general section at the end, these are taken from the assessment tool. But everything in between, all the different body domains here are basically were taken from the HCBA clinical assessment, which is why it's more intensive medical information we're soliciting. But again, if pain is not an issue, if seizure activity, and so what I'm kind of getting at, which I'll just say directly, is if the vast majority of your population doesn't have these higher, they don't have big issues, medical issues, like Mary had said that. I'm sorry, incorrectly, but it's not the same kind of medical program as the HCBA waiver. It's not intended to serve people with as high of needs. I would imagine that you're going to be answering no a lot of the time, and so I don't imagine I can't imagine a scenario where you're going to have to be going through every single one of these areas and answering a bunch of the questions, if they are appropriate for ALW in the first place. But this is where I know you want to get a more deeper dive with a clinician, and so I'm not going to attempt to do that beyond just if you have specific. Is there anything, if you want to put in the chat, anything that is stumping you? I know that the monitoring, taking the blood pressure sounds like it was a sticking point. Is there any other area in here that's you feel like your nurses are not capable of responding to, like if there is an issue, like if there's an issue with the, like what kind of diet they have and how they're feeding, or any other area. I'm just looking through the chat as well.
I did want to address just, this is regarding the wait list. The reserve, because I got this question a few times. The reserve capacity category is captured through the sub program, not location at intake. Obviously, if you select institutional transition as your sub program, the location of intake will reflect that. APS would be a little bit different, but yes, the sub program, and that's outlined in workflow 1. That's how we capture reserve capacity. So just wanted to throw that out.
And then the respiratory, there's a question from Rachel. We understand that might be impossible, so this is not a required question. You don't have to answer this question or the treatment question to complete this, but you do have to answer the one we figured it was reasonable someone would know within the last 6 months if they had a respiratory infection. Obviously not if it happened 5 years ago. We don't expect anyone to remember that.
And then for residential habilitation, it's all the required documents that were required before the go live is still required. Those will just be uploaded into the MedCompass system in the document center. And then the RN assessment ISP will need to be completed. I'm hoping to have a workflow out by next week, the end of next week for RH. I'm working on the re-enrollment first, but yes, the same documents are still required.
Okay. We had a question about when will program managers have the ability to add. You won't be able to do that. That's controlled by the HCS. Each one of you who has access to MedCompass DHCS is paying for your access. The user licenses are a big part of the cost. Plus, we can't, for obviously security reasons, we can't allow you to just add whoever you want. They would have access to. You wouldn't be able to anyway because there's 2 steps. One is the MedCompass part, and the other is what happens through that DHCS portal, which is, only a few people can actually add you to your security groups that allow you to even get in here and see your organization's cases. So that's never going to happen. And as far as editing roles, if you need to add someone new, edit a role, we're going to be releasing a PDF form that you can email to us to request both MedCompass access, but also it's kind of our contact database. So you'll also be able to indicate if you want the person to be invited to like the ALW, the bi-monthly calls. If you want them to get emails related to MedCompass when there's like releases or things, different email updates related to MedCompass. So you'll be able to do that. And you'll also be able to request a role change if someone, say, was a social worker, maybe they became an RN, then you would ask us to update them.
And then for those who are still experiencing MedCompass issues, I do see the emails coming from Monica. That's who's working on all the login issues, and she's seems to be responding within 1 to 2 business days. So I do want to say, just continue to email the MedCompass support. I'm getting CC'd on all of them, so she is responding to them. We do have over 40 CCAs with multiple users, but I'm not saying that. But we just want to make sure. That's why we did ask originally that one Excel spreadsheet be completed with everybody, and we know there was some errors on our end too. So, but yes, please continue to email MedCompass support. She's responding to emails every day and regarding technical assistance or login issues. So
So again, I know in this treatment section, you're going to want, this is like you guys pointed out, I probably not especially helpful for me to just walk through. Uh, but I did want to show you though, one more time real quick before we run out of time. The ISP and just a reminder of how you're requesting a change in tier level review and a residential habilitation request. And that is driven by the ISP, which is what we showed in the previous trainings a little bit of. But just to remind you, the request, we have our queues. The nurse has the initial enrollment, nurse review queue that she works out of to review new cases, new applicants. And then she has a queue for the change in tier level and for residential habilitation as well. So I just went into the ISP, and then in the first section, towards the bottom of the first section, there's this question. This ISP is and it mirrors what we saw in the RN assessment, but this is where the rules, the automations trigger from. So at some point, I don't know if we have it yet, but we're going to be requesting a re-enrollment queue if we don't have one. So we'll be adding functionality there. But right now, that's being treated as a normal intake review by the nurse. But she'll be able to know if it's a re-enrollment once she gets into the paperwork. But the most important thing is if you're requesting a change in tier level or approval for a change in tier level, you have to answer this question with change in tier level. That's the only way we will get the nurse will be made aware that you want that review to happen. So if it's a semi-annual and a change in tier level, you pick change in tier level. If it's a residential habilitation request as well, you're going to be submitting in conjunction with this, plus a change in tier level, you click change in tier level. That trumps all of the other options if that's what you're asking for, if that's one of the things you're asking for. So that's very important. To also request or just only request residential habilitation, like if this were just a normal semi-annual, then you would have to indicate towards the end of the ISP, there is a section that asks for waiver specific services. These are all services that are listed in the assisted living waiver as waiver services. So you need to click the residential habilitation here in the ISP and obviously answer the required questions. And then, make a note, please, Mercedes, we need to probably turn these two into comment text fields instead of text boxes. Just, yeah.
Okay.
But you'll answer these. Once you complete this, then the nurse in a different queue, the residential habilitation queue, she'll see that pop up in her queue, her task, and she'll know you're requesting that. So if you do here, change in tier level, and you indicate residential habilitation below, it will, once you complete this, it'll create two separate requests for the nurse to review. And so that's how it's done. So it's driven by the ISP. We encourage you to have all the paperwork, whatever other information needs to be uploaded. To do all of that, obviously the assessment tool should be completed before the ISP is completed. So get everything in there that you need before you mark the ISP complete if it's a change in tier level and or residential habilitation request, because depending on the workload, down the line, it might be a nurse might be able to get to it within a day or two. And if you don't have everything in place that allows the nurse to approve it, then it's going to result in a deferral and waste time for everyone. So keep that in mind. This should be the last step. Completing the ISP is the last step.
Oh, what I did want to add, we did get a comment regarding that RH, those text box. I agree. The narrative drop-down tab, we might discuss removing it just because the CCA is already uploading a justification or like a summary basically into the document center. So it's kind of would be redundant at this time.
Sure.
So I do want to acknowledge that one. We did notice that.
Okay, that makes sense. That's good. Okay, so that's now you pointed out, is there anything else? I mean, and you can send an email, it doesn't have to be all in this chat, but if there's anything else that seems kind of broken, like that one question about the number of meds, please flag that for us. It's something we had missed that is important. So we need to fix that right away. That'll be like a priority thing we'll have to fix, because that is creates a potential work stoppage, and we can't have that. But anything like that, please flag, along with anything else you want, any other suggestions or comments. But if it's stopping you from actually completing any of these assessments properly, please note that, like, very clearly, that this is super important. And then Mercedes, up in the chat, Bridget had asked about a little over 10 minutes ago, a series of questions. Just want to answer. Did you answer all of them already?
Yeah, I got some of them. I was going to go back and respond like through email on the ones I couldn't get, because I don't know if the chat's going to be available after. If it's regarding, again, I want to answer, if it's regarding a specific case that you're checking on, and I know that wasn't Bridget's question, please continue to email the IR inbox, because I wouldn't be able to look it up anyways. And then please don't encrypt documents that are uploaded to the document center. And then for reassessments that were done prior to go live that we're allowing CCAs to upload into the document center, it's the RN, it's the completed assessment tool. So the combined AT and ISP, and then also the signed patient's rights form. That would be the complete reassessment packet.
Thank you, Mercedes and Sam. I have a question. When an RN assessment is completed, obviously we didn't get to do that today because this is a test one. And once it's completed, does the information carry over into the ISP at all? There's a lot of duplicative information that we're having to enter that leaves room for error, such as the statuses that we've selected in the RN assessment. We're having to put that in one by one into the ISP. So will that carry over once the RN assessment is completed? It used to do that in the PDF, and that was a time saver. So
yeah, it does. The rules that we're pulling over from because technically the RN assessment should be completed first, right? So
yeah.
the pullover rules where it was like under certain areas were automatically pulled over, those should be pulling over to the ISP as long as it was completed in the RN assessment, which I don't think you would have been able to complete it without putting an answer in. Those should be pulled forward in the ISP. But if you're opening the ISP first, then you won't see any of it.
Okay, thank you. And how do we get a copy of, once everything is complete and all these bugs are worked out, how do we get a copy of the ISP to our facilities and our clients? We can't print. There's no print, like, because
there is a print icon. It's at the very top. It doesn't print. We already know this. It doesn't print as user friendly as the previous version of the ISP, though this did not affect go live leadership to prove it as it was. We do know page 7 is cutting off at the very end. Assure Carry is working on that, so that is an open ticket. But there is an icon like when you're at the top of the ISP. I'm not sure if you need to print the assessment tool, but you can do that too. There is a way to print it from there.
Can you show us, please? I've spent all night truly trying to figure out how to do that. And
Sam, could you show them where the print icon is on the ISP?
Yeah,
or
sure.
How to print it?
Can you note this in the legally responsible contact information section on the ISP? This if family relationship to individual, we need to fix that. If I click self, it shouldn't be asking who the relationship is.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So it's basically printing from the browser, and that makes actually the ISP much easier to print the RNS because it's basically one long page. So unless you click, oh yeah, then it's still on the same page. So if you need a rights modification, but you would just use, the print, and then you can, if you're emailing it to someone, you would just print a PDF. If you're mailing it to someone, then you would print to whatever your printer. But you could also kind of mess around a little with some of the options. It might help clear it up, like if you find settings that work on your computer. But you can see, even though it's not pretty, we do have, all of this should be at least printable. So you could share that, but again, you know, it doesn't have to necessarily be like you can mess around with the settings to get it clearer. And we are working with the SureCare. There's a product. There's something issue with actual product. We've been asking for months now, many like definitely since last year, about you know having a better printing option than this. This will get the job done, but we don't like it, and you don't like it, and we understand that. But at some point, we're looking to actually, come on, it's so messed up. It's weird. Okay, now I can't see it at all. But here, this not documents. What is it? Wait, is it documents? Yeah, there's this thing called merge and send, and how it works is it takes the electronic form and it merges it into a template. So that's the route we're gonna have to pursue. We tried to just have like a print button right here, and it didn't work. SureCare couldn't get it to work right. So what that means is once we've cleaned this up and fixed things you pointed out and made sure maybe we're taking out certain questions or change whatever we're doing, but once we kind of have it in a final state, then this merge and send will actually allow you to take you'd pick which one of these, which would be the ISP, and then it should just seamlessly go into a template, like create a PDF that's clean and lists all the information in like a formatted way that's easy to read and print out and share. So that's the goal. I still, I think I checked in last month and I was told that there's still the product team over there, the HQ for SureCare was still working on fixing that functionality so that we can utilize it. So printing will come, and good printing, that's a priority for us too. We have very little control when it's a product thing with Ed Compass. It's a different team. We can't just ask like we usually do. Like, oh, we want to get rid of, or we need to fix something in this assessment, and we can do that quickly. But yeah, this functionality with the printing is a bigger issue that needs the core product team to do something to fix it. Okay, I see that that was good. We got I don't know if everyone looked at it, but uh, Nanny did earlier on, 20 minutes ago or so, write a long comment in the chat, and it's great. I mean, I haven't read all of it because it's long, but if you send us an email where you kind of break down points and give us details on what your concerns or issues are, then it'll make it a lot quicker for us to address those. So I'm saying, like, how Nanny did it is good. There's a lot of detail, and it's something we can take back to our vendor. Okay, so we will be talking internally, and I know Mercedes and I will talk to our leadership, and we will be trying to resolve once and for all the question of the treatment section and the assessment tool, and then also, if the decision is that we're going to continue to require it, at least initially, then we will be pushing for having a clinical kind of meeting where you can talk to a nurse or nurses and ask questions about that section, the different areas in the treatment section. That's all. Mercedes, is there anything else
Sorry,
you'd like to add?
No, nothing. I'm going to continue to answer questions. I'll email them out though. And then I'm working as fast as I can to address all the questions that are already in the IR inbox. Just be patient. We get about 150 just MedCompass questions alone. So just be patient with me. I'm trying to get them out answered as quick as I can. And then we are working with the ShareCare on a few things. And I just want to reiterate, for the tier issue, we need examples. So if we need examples to show that it's not scoring correctly. So if you had a member that's already enrolled, for instance, and they were a 3, and you have the Excel spreadsheet, and it has to be an Excel spreadsheet, not a PDF converted, the Excel spreadsheet, and then you did the RN assessment in MedCompass, and now there are 2 or whatnot, that's what we need. We just need you to email the IR inbox and provide the Excel spreadsheet so we could pull them up side by side. I just wanted to note that we just need examples to be able to show it. But that's it for me.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone, and will be more communications forthcoming, and we do appreciate that this is a big change, and also that ALW is running pretty smoothly before. We do recognize that as well. So it's not like we wanted to just come and make your life harder. We really don't have any choice. If we're going to be compliant with the access rule, we have to put all this stuff into MedCompass so we can report off acquired metrics.
Thank you, Sam. I think, well, speaking for my CCA, I think I completely agree. Like, I think MedCompass is going to turn out well once all of the chaos has died down. I think the issue is we're not against change. I mean, that's inevitable in our field as healthcare providers. I think it's the prior notification, time to adjust, get our teams ready, get the resources. Like, if we're having to do this live, a lot of us are smaller agencies than others, getting the tablets, getting everyone the hotspot, getting them a stool to even sit on, because some of these facilities, it's not the best environment, and just getting a radio for our clients is difficult, let alone Wi-Fi. So having the time to get together as a team to collaborate, maybe it's seeing the new assessment questions prior and prep ourselves, done little trials. I think that would have really helped keep ALW smooth and maybe keep that inbox from 150 emails to maybe 50. So it is really difficult to manage it on this side, and we truly are not trying to complain. And it does feel a little hurtful to hear that. It's more about feedback, and if we're not giving you that feedback, then everything that your nurses will have to review is going to be really chaotic. So we really care to ensure that we're staying compliant and provide documentation that's accurate, without lying, without assuming an answer just because we didn't have the choice. And it might be coming off a little bit overwhelming or aggressive because you're reading the same question many times, but that's a sign to me that something needs change. And if we work together, we can get it to a place where we're all happy and it doesn't feel like it's complaining on our end. So I think just some more time to have dealt with the change would have been really appreciated and would have helped at the end of the day.
Yes, thank you. And I don't know if I've said the complaining, then I apologize. I don't mean like you're whining about anything. So we do recognize it's important and a big change. So thank you. And we do want your feedback, 100%. Okay, thank you, everyone.